Sorry, that was my bad.
Welcome to episode number 8 of the Unrelenting Show. It may be the first one with video, Gene. We're not sure.
Well, we're attempting it to be, and I have some bad news for you.
Everything crashed again?
There's 7 people watching already.
Oh, well, hello. Welcome to the Unrelenting live stream with video. What? How many hours yesterday did we test this stuff?
5.
It took a while. It took a while to figure a lot of this stuff out, but I think it looks pretty good when it doesn't crash.
Yeah, it says the blind guy.
Right. I mean, everything looks fairly good to me. It's all
looks
just
pretty
a blur.
good to me.
It's all a blur. That's all
exactly.
we need.
Well, the important part, as far as I'm concerned, is audio. The video is just the extra bonus.
Yes, exactly. People want to see, though, what's going on when we do the show.
Yeah. Do they, though?
They want to see the reaction shot. I mean, when you say something crazy, they want me to be like, I mean, that's the beauty of video.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to some reaction videos coming from us where we do nothing but watch other people's videos and react to them and then get millions of views on YouTube.
It is a lot less work to just watch other people and go,
I mean,
they're dumb.
This isn't a huge amount of work. It's a lot of testing, but the actual show production, I don't think is too bad.
Testing. That's the beauty of it all.
So we got some topics to talk about today?
No, none at all, because all we did was test video.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean,
there's been a fun test.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Although we're cruising into the holiday period, which means you're going to have less and less real news going on because, all the politicians, they go home and not much happens in politics and not much happens overall, in the tech world. But I had a couple things that I thought were interesting. A couple of them came from the Trump O'Reilly history tour, which if you listen to our show here, I'm a big Bill O'Reilly fan.
I do know that. Yeah, you're definitely a big Bill O'Reilly guy.
And he went out for 2 shows. He's doing 2 shows now, tomorrow and Sunday as well, in Texas, not out by you. He's in, I think, Dallas and Houston. And they're doing the basketball arena size venues. And it's basically O'Reilly grilling Trump for a couple of hours, trying to get an oral history of the Trump presidency, which I think could be kind of interesting. And
like, why did you hire all these crappy hires and didn't fire them when you should have? That kind of thing?
That is one of the questions. And he talked about that as far as, Fauci, General Milley, and, how come these guys still had jobs? And
yeah.
It came down to it would have been political suicide because of all of the impeachments and all the other stuff going on. So there were some things that it seemed like maybe he knew his hands were tied on, or this would have caused further problems.
Political suicide, like not getting reelected?
Yes. Although he has another shot now, right? Because this is...
Nah, he won't get in.
Well, he has a shot. I don't know whether he'll get in or not.
Oh, and you froze.
So,
nice.
And now you froze. Yeah, you're gone.
You were gone there for a second.
Yeah, you were gone. You disappeared.
Yeah, well, you disappeared from the recording.
Hey, that's a beautiful thing. Just drop in, drop out.
Uh-huh.
That is why all these websites that claim to do this stuff well and charge, that might be why they get paid.
We don't know if they work any better.
No, we'd have to do a long test on one of those, too.
And you're gone again.
Uh-oh. I still see you.
Yeah, well, you disappeared in the middle of your word there, but okay. Let's see if it'll keep going. The good news from a technical standpoint is the stream on locals is going to time out in half an hour.
You got a half hour. That's what you got.
It's the first half hour of our recording will be streamed. After that,
and then locals will puke and be like, no more.
And I am still recording a local copy here, so if you really want to stick it on YouTube, you can do that.
Where people can see all of the excitement. But the Trump information, 2 things came out in regards to both of the impeachments, where the first one was all about Russian collusion, of course, and the second one about the January 6th incident at the Capitol. when it comes to the phone call with the president of Ukraine, I was amazed to find out that William Jefferson Clinton actually signed a treaty with Ukraine in regards to exactly this type of situation, which is if there's criminal activity going on, in either place, whether it's the United States or in the Ukraine, not the Ukraine, that they can share information and they can request information. There's an actual treaty specifically with Ukraine about this. So the fact that the mainstream media covered this as, oh God, Trump did something really bad, is absolutely hilarious because there's a treaty, which I don't know. That just, I think, blows that whole thing out of the water, that we had so much wasted time, so much wasted resources going after Donald Trump on a phone call where he did nothing wrong. And when it comes down to the January 6th thing, the really interesting bit was on January 5th, and this was confirmed with the Secretary of Defense, Donald Trump was looking, watching, seeing the crowd sizes, and he said, we should probably have 10,000 National Guardsmen on the ground tomorrow, boots on the ground, for this rally and stuff going on January 6th. And that went up the chain. I don't know if it got all the way to Nancy Pelosi, but it went up the chain because Trump does not control the National Guard. But he requested those troops and did not get them. So the question would then be, if he was planning for people to go and attack the Capitol, why would you request troops to go protect the Capitol the day before?
I always thought the president got to control the National Guard. How is it that he's requesting them whenever we've sent National Guard anywhere? It's always been an order, not a request. How is this a request?
I don't know how the National Guard works. I mean, somebody else might know.
Does Trump know how the National Guard works?
I believe so, that it's not under his purview, that he does not have the control to just...
Or did he just believe some underling who he should have fired long ago, telling him, oh, sir, you can't actually request them?
No.
Yeah, or you can't just pull the trigger. You have to ask permission.
No, he requested...
I don't know, man. The further we get from the Trump presidency, the more disappointed I am in what Trump didn't do. And he had the opportunity to do for 4 years. And there's a tremendous amount of things that he could have done to change the country for the better, to stop this radicalization that's happening, and didn't for whatever reason.
Well, all the radicalization was absolutely just going against him. And
absolutely, it was going against him. But
I don't know, how do you stop
it? Well, you start by getting rid of people that others are telling you, oh, that'll be political suicide if you get rid of Fauci. No, it wouldn't be.
Who is Fauci?
Fauci. Yes, my pet nickname for Fauci. He looks like one of those Italian puppets in the puppet shows. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, kind of.
He totally looks like that. He's got that no body. He's got a little stick body with a big head that's just kind of flopping back and forth on there, and a big nose and big ears. I mean, very similar to those puppets.
Yeah, he is old enough. He kind of looks like that. He's like the guy in...
Well, he's 85, right?
I think so. The two guys in the Muppet Show. I mean, that's kind of...
Yeah. Why is there no mandatory retirement for people in the government?
That's a good question. Well, why are there no term limits for people in the government?
Well, I asked that question in 8th grade, I remember, and I was told that'll never happen. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but in 8th grade, you were living in Moscow, and this was like 1940, right?
Yeah. Well, we still had issues with term limits back when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah. So I thought that was two interesting things, and
yeah,
I don't think
like
Trump
I was trying to figure out how the hell the FDR is still in office. God damn it!
Yeah, that's he was in for more than a couple of terms.
Yeah,
but you wanted to talk about Russian propaganda too. I don't know how that all fits into what's
Russian
going
propaganda.
On. Yeah,
oh yeah,
you told me to remind you about Russian propaganda.
I did, because I knew I would forget what the hell you're talking about. So what I wanted to mention on that count was. There's been a lot of videos and clips of Putin and other, Russian source people talking about, oh my God, America's pushing for World War III. They're encroaching on Russia. They're putting troops into Ukraine. They're moving missiles into Ukraine. This is exactly an equivalent of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it will have the same consequences unless the U.S. does the same thing that Russia did, which is pull back. So while all of that is happening, and I think it is a horrible idea to be trying to antagonize one of the only 4 nuclear powers. The thing that I think most people don't realize is all of that commentary, which I'm going to generally just classify as propaganda, which, for better or worse, propaganda is directed.
Propaganda.
It's directed political speech meant to do something. That's what propaganda is. Like the posters during World War II that said "loose lips sink ships" is propaganda. All that falls in the category of propaganda.
Right. You're trying to get that nationalistic pride. You're trying to get people on board with something.
Well, there's different types. There could be nationalists, but in this case, the propaganda is really it's being talked to or directed towards seemingly the West in the United States. But really, and it took me a little while to figure this out, but really the propaganda is being created for Ukraine, because the underlying message of the propaganda is, would you like to be Cuba? Because that's kind of where you're heading.
So the Russian propaganda is all about that.
Well, it's predominantly about that. I don't know all about that, but it's this idea that that no country that's sane wants to be the place where other countries have a war.
Right. You don't want to be the
whether
pawn.
It's Afghanistan, whether it's Cuba, whether it's, Poland.
The Russian answer is, hey, we'll just take Ukraine. We'll take you in.
Yeah, well, the Russian answer, and it's, I think, look, Ukraine has legitimate gripes with Russia, for real. There's no doubt about that. But really, so does every other country with every other country.
True.
We seem to have moved on from what Germany did during World War II in a matter of about a decade. By the 1950s, Germany wasn't seen as this evil country, and people from Germany weren't discriminated against.
Well, this is a big problem with just not teaching the overall history of what happened, right?
Yeah. And when Ukraine was part of the USSR, there was certainly control coming from Moscow that didn't take into account a whole lot of wishes of the people of Ukraine. Ukraine was the breadbasket of USSR. So it's sort of like the Midwest states here. It's where the majority of the food was produced, and not a whole lot of expenditures were provided for things like John C. Dworak's favorite topics, road improvement.
Right. The potholes suck.
Yeah, the potholes are getting bigger every year, and yet they expect us to crank out more grain every year. So there is a history of very legitimate gripes from the country. The thing that Russia is, through the propaganda currently, is promoting is this concept that, on the one hand, you just want to be a puppet of the West and then be the sort of the country that gets to become Syria or Iraq or whatever, any place the U.S. has been in a war turns into a shithole. Or do you want to come to your senses, realize that you guys are Slavic brothers, and that you will be better off in a cooperative arrangement with Russia, which they're quick to point out is not the USSR. Don't forget, it's a different country.
Totally different.
Different politics in a lot of ways. America right now is more socialist than Russia is. If you look at the tax rates, you look at the business policies, there's certainly plenty of corruption in Russia, but no more so than in the city you live in, Chicago.
Oh, yeah. So, there may be more in Chicago.
There may be more in Chicago. So the two-pronged propaganda approach that Russia is having right now is, while the messaging seems to be directed at the West and the United States, it really has a sort of a subtext that's meant to be heard by Ukraine, saying, you guys are on the verge of doing something extremely stupid that will hurt your own country. And we, like the big brother that we are just telling you this for your own good and giving you an open arm to come back into the fold.
Well, and the concept that the United States can protect any country, ask the people in Afghanistan how that's going. I mean, it sounds really great at the time, you know, but...
Well, any country that the U.S. has come into. I mean, can you think of the last country that the United States actually successfully protected?
Not long-term. And, short-term protection can get you into, more trouble. That's like your big brother protecting you from the bully for a year, but then he goes off to college and then you get your ass kicked even harder. So it's...
maybe. I mean, you look at certainly starting in Iraq and Afghanistan and what's happened there. Tons of money from the United States went into those countries. That's undeniable. But where did that money go? Where did it end up? And it's predominantly in the hands of the bullies of those countries. It's in the hands of people that managed to get into high government positions to be able to steal the money that is coming in as aid from the U.S. or as bribes. I mean, there were plenty of bribes. We saw the truckloads of pallets of cash going to Iraq. Then we saw them going to Iran. I don't know if they ever went to Afghanistan. They probably did, but the poppy production is now at record levels in Afghanistan. So after 15, 20 years, after 20 years of the United States being in Afghanistan, we apparently did nothing to reduce the amount of poppy production that was happening there, even though, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but we always portrayed poppy production as one of the evils of Taliban. Is they're like, oh yeah, they're just drug dealers. They're no better than the Colombian drug lords up there, except they're in the mountains. So I don't know. I mean, those countries not better off. You remember when the U.S. and NATO were bombing Yugoslavia? That ended well.
None of it ever ends well.
No country left there. They all broke up. They balkanized. Amazing. The Balkans balkanized. And I mean, going even back to Vietnam, the U.S. was in there, and then the U.S. left, and a bunch of people, if they couldn't get on those last flights out of Vietnam, what happened to them?
Right. The concept is always you're going to go in and teach the local people how to defend themselves and give them the tools.
That works real well.
No, I can't think of really many good examples of where it does.
So I think that's the subtext that the Russian propaganda is conveying. And I think for most people, they're just seeing it as the literal stuff that comes across, which is, Putin threatens of World War III if U.S. puts missiles into Ukraine. Well, yes and no. I mean, it is definitely supposed to be a threat, but it's supposed to make Ukraine think a lot harder about whether they want to have that happen or not than it is about making the U.S. back down and decide to not put missiles in Ukraine.
Well, Ukraine doesn't want Russia in Ukraine. I don't know if they want the U.S. in as much as it is they just don't want Russia to come in, and they feel like, again, they need somebody to assist them to make sure that doesn't happen. And of course,
they're recovering from. I mean, they're recovering not just from the communist years of the USSR, but they also had the president of the country that was in place during the color revolution that happened there was extremely pro-Russia, pro-Putin, and basically bent over backwards to anything that Russia wanted in terms of, agreements for pipelines, whatever, he bent over backwards to do. And I think that's the hook that the U.S. used through CIA to instigate that revolution. But you can't force people to have a revolution unless there's some genuine agreements there. So even though it was clearly a political action by the U.S. to have that happen, nonetheless, it was for a good reason. And that's when everything falls into place, right? When you're trying to change a regime, and the guys you're trying to get rid of are actually the bad guys. They are actually doing something that people are pissed off about. That's the ultimate scenario.
Well, yeah, the ultimate scenario is to replace that and get out, not we need to stay there.
Well, it's to replace that and put somebody in that you have power over.
Right.
That's
somebody you got the dirt on.
Yeah. Somebody that's been to Epstein Island, maybe.
You mean Bill Clinton?
Oh, well, he lived there.
Right.
But you know what? I give Clinton a total pass on all of this because being married to Hillary that is more punishment than any man deserves, even Hitler.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hillary is showing up again.
Oh, she's Satan incarnate.
She's drooling. She thinks she's got an opening because the latest polling numbers are showing even Democrats are like, no, Joe, don't run again, please.
Yeah. Well, did you hear the current theory that's being run out there where Kamala resigns for personal reasons? And I think indeterminate personal reasons. No one's come up with a good reason for why. Joe ends up resigning for medical reasons. He's just too old.
But who's replacing Kamala before this?
So before Joe resigns, you're absolutely right. Nancy Pelosi confirms the appointment of Hillary as the replacement vice president. So Hillary gets in to be vice president just before Joe quits, making Hillary both the first female president and the sitting president running against Trump.
I can
ensuring that she'll win.
I mean, I've heard crazier theories. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, it's a, I think it's a little too crazy a theory because I don't see Kamala Harris resigning for any reason. But I think the idea was they just give her so much money, which they have, literally billions.
She's been hoping Joe falls at some point. And
yeah. I definitely get the sense that she is more for that. But she is kind of standing in the way of Hillary getting in.
How dare she?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How dare she stand in the way of an old white woman?
So we'll see. Speaking of crazy people with money, how about Alec Baldwin? The latest thing, did you hear that there's a search warrant for his phone now?
Not only is there a search warrant for his phone, but his lawyer is claiming that this was a proactive thing. That no, we wanted this. We wanted the search warrant.
They asked for the search warrant? Yeah.
Yes. To protect, of course, to protect Alex and his family, because I think we all know that everybody that has a phone probably has way too much information on that device about their personal life. And I guess the intriguing thing would then be, do you want to, if you, as Alec Jones, if you wanted to share this
Alec
information.
Baldwin, maybe?
You're right. I'm sorry, Alec Baldwin. If you wanted to share that phone, would you give it to the authorities if there was something else on there that they might find that would implicate you in something else? This seems that the lawyer for Baldwin was like, well, no, we want it so you can have a search warrant to only specifically be able to look for the stuff about the shooting in regards to, things relating to that.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads me to ask the question, what else is on that phone that he is so afraid that the authorities might find?
Yeah. Well, my pet theory, as you know, has always been that he was in a tryst with this gal.
Right.
That they had a romantic relationship going, and then she was doing something to rock the boat, and he decided that the most expedient way to not rock the boat was to get rid of her. And probably didn't think that this would be nearly as big a hoopla in the media as it is, because it's just an accident on set, and accidents happen on sets all the time.
Right.
Just not as often as he thought they would. Because obviously he's been portraying this as, I did nothing wrong. I did the same thing I've done a million times. I was doing what I was told by the staff. I didn't look at the gun, because had I even bothered checking to see if the gun had ammo in it, that would have stopped the process. Like I'm not allowed to touch the gun other than in my scenes.
Right.
But then he contradicts that immediately by saying, well, this was not even a scene that was being filmed. This was with no cameras rolling. This was a discussion with the director about what to do and how to do it and which angle to look at.
Right, which means the trigger would never have to be pulled, and he's claiming the trigger wasn't
And he's
pulled.
saying he never touched the trigger, and then somebody else, I think there's another person that's also saying that what they saw did not have his finger on the trigger, and then the gun just magically fired. But even if that was the case, even if it's an actual malfunction of the pistol, not checking the gun for ammo
Right.
is absolutely his fault. And this idea that I'm not allowed to check the gun once it's handed to me is complete bullshit, because we've heard from interviews with people that are working in Hollywood as armorers that the actors, most actors, absolutely check the guns themselves because they know what to do, and they're coached to do it, in fact.
Right.
But they do it in the presence of the armorer. So you're handed a gun. First thing you do is you do a check. Is the chamber loaded for a pistol? And is the magazine full of squibs, or is it full of live normal ammo? So as the person ultimately holding the gun and pointing it towards people, that responsibility is never abdicated. It is always on you. In fact, even in the military, that responsibility is on you.
Right.
If you get weapons that are given to you, you are responsible for making sure that those weapons don't discharge in a direction that they're not intended to.
Well, if you're a responsible person, you want to check that immediately after having that weapon put into your hand. If
you are holding a flare gun, something that isn't even meant to shoot people with, but anything that contains a gunpowder type substance, anything that has a chemical reaction happening in it.
Right.
You're warned to never point it towards people. Always point it in a safe direction. Just because you're filming a movie, low budget or high budget, doesn't matter. You don't get released from that responsibility. So if they want to have people holding wooden guns, or like practice guns, like for firearms training, we used plastic guns that looked and weighed the exact same amount as normal guns.
Right.
But they were either blue or red, so you could easily distinguish them from a normal gun, which is typically black. And they were incapable of actually shooting. So that to me would be a prop gun, a genuine gun that is a toy. It can't be used to shoot. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the troll room. I got 3 monitors, so of course it's like that's the problem.
We got 8 people video. on Unrelenting live stream on locals. What do we got in the troll room?
49 people on the stream right now.
49. All right.
But the fake gun concept, to me, it would make a lot of sense when you're doing
and then
the
they
rehearsals,
could use CGI.
Especially.
They could use CGI to, tweak it to look like a real gun or whatever.
Well, you could certainly do that. But I mean, they make a lot of different models. I know Sig Sauer does of all of their popular guns. They make as a BB version, so you can get used to training with them at home out in your own yard without having to buy, the ammo, which has gotten very expensive. I'm pretty
sure they don't make them. They license that to other companies to make.
If so, they sell them with their brand name on them. So I don't know whether they make them or not, but they sell them and they mirror their exact, everything on the gun is the same. So you can get used to it.
But you can't shoot actual ammo through it.
Right.
It just looks
BBs.
the same.
Right. Correct. Which is great because that way you can get used to having the weapon.
Do you have one of these BB guns?
I don't. I've thought about it because I do have a P365 9mm. I'm like, well, it'd be kind of cool to have the BB gun version of it. You can go out and back and, shoot some target practice rather than spending the money on range time and 9mm ammo. But I mean, I understand the concept, and a lot of people who don't understand how movies are made probably believe that the guns that they're using are not real. They're specially made just for no, they're real guns that if handled properly, people don't die. Now, how a live round got into this, I don't know.
Well, and the thing that was amazing to me is that they've got they were literally using the same gun to fire live rounds
Right.
earlier, like a day earlier, or maybe even that same morning. And it would seem to me that you would want to designate the gun you're going to use with fake rounds somehow to be separate from anything you use with live rounds, because you're inviting trouble.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a good idea to do that.
Well, they said live rounds were never supposed to be on the set, but obviously they were. Yeah. And then that is the question of, well, why were they on the set? Was it, the armorer? Did somebody bring this in that shouldn't have? It sounded like people on the set were using this gun for target practice just out in the desert. Right. And that is a really bad idea. But it does come down to, again, every time you're handed a gun, if you've never shopped for a gun, go to your local gun store and just check it out. Ask them to see a couple guns. The salesperson, every time they pick up a gun out of the case before they hand it to you, will check to see if it's loaded. I guarantee.
Every time.
Every time.
Absolutely.
That's how this kind of stuff doesn't happen. And that's, if the clerk at the store can do it, an actor given the gun can certainly do it. And if they can't, as an actor, be taught the proper way to do this, which takes like a minute, then they deserve whatever legal repercussions there are if they're handed a gun that's loaded and they kill somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And simply saying, well, the director told me to point the gun at her and then to pull the trigger back, or to pull the hammer back. Okay, what if she told you, now grab that knife and stab me with it?
Right.
And you never check to see if it's a rubber prop knife or a real metal knife. It's still your fault.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happened too.
The gun doesn't have to be the only, thing here that you can screw up with. You could absolutely screw up with a knife or any other weapon.
But I do think that's interesting that they're making this request for the cell phone. So, they're playing, it's being spun really hard on Alec Baldwin's side. And that to me says there's something a little shady going on, but we'll have to wait and find out, I guess.
I'm sure her nudes have been deleted already.
Well, that's it. If they were having a relationship, that would definitely add a layer that's hard to ignore.
It's hard to say, well, I accidentally killed my lover.
Right. I accidentally killed somebody I'm working with. Okay, maybe. But yeah, if there's that kind of a relationship there, then there's a lot of more questions that need to be answered.
What kind of glass is that?
It's Taylor Swift, man.
Of course, that's what I figured.
What else would we use but the Taylor Swift Turvis?
Yeah, what else would you use?
It's the best.
No, we there.
Right. It's the best. Well, what do you got?
I got
I have to move your screen.
The most generic cup thing possible.
Wow.
Solo cup.
So many different windows.
I use solo cups to drink tea.
Hot tea, those work for hot too?
They do work for hot, yeah. The reason I use them is because the tea cools off really fast in a solo cup.
That would make sense because there's no thermal properties keeping the warmth.
Like in. It's not insulating whatsoever.
I am kind of disappointed though that you're not in your regular attire. Every other time I've seen you, you've been in the Adidas tracksuit. Why are you not wearing it today?
Well, I
breaking character.
I forgot to put one on today. I'll wear one for you next time. How's that?
That's good. One time, I just can't wait for your snake to just start coming up from behind your back.
Yeah, well, let's hope that doesn't happen, because if he came up behind my back, that means he got out of his cage without permission.
I mean, really, who are you to keep a little poor animal in a cage?
Yeah, the little poor animal can open doors.
That is worrisome.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's a 18-foot long snake that knows how to open doors.
You must sleep with one eye open. No wonder you're always up at 3 a.m. watching videos.
I don't really sleep.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, the Baldwin thing, man. I don't know. It's going to be, every bit of this case has been weird, and I don't expect that to change moving forward. But we also had, I thought this was interesting. The Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
what happened?
He had a party. I guess his wife threw a party.
Okay.
And the invitation suggested people get tested or vaccinated before the party.
Whoops.
Yeah. And his comment was just he doesn't really control his house. So obviously his wife.
He's a real man. Yes.
Right. But his wife obviously is not the which is really would be an interesting relationship when somebody is as dug in as he is on that particular topic to have your wife throwing a party.
I mean, to be fair, getting tested and requiring a vaccine are two separate things.
Yes. Well, he recommended in the his wife obviously then recommended in the invitation that people get vaccinated.
Oh, she did. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Well, that's the same thing then.
So I thought that was interesting. He just said, quote, "I guess I'm not always the boss at my own house."
He's just figuring that out now.
Any guy that's married, you probably know that
exactly.
already.
I think that's literally like any married guy would say the same thing.
But it's an interesting thing. I mean, that is one of those topics lately in this divided world that we have going on. That between two spouses, it would be a hard topic to disagree on. I think there's a lot that you could just ignore.
I think a lot of families right now are split in this topic.
Yes,
at least from just talking to my friends.
And how do they deal with that? If you have a husband or a wife or
they don't see each other much.
That would be it, right? Because you're like, well, no, if you're not vaccinated, I don't want to see you. And
I mean,
it's not good.
It's I could see some issues with that as well. I don't know. I think it's hard to say which side you would rather be on, or I would rather be on in that scenario, because if you buy into the whole vaccination thing, then if you are living with somebody who's not vaccinated, poses no real risk to you.
Correct.
In theory. So you're really only yelling at them and bitching at them for something that only affects them and not you.
Well, it affects everybody if they die, but I get where you're going.
Positively, because you end up with all the money instead of half the money. Right. Unlike a divorce.
Right. That's a much better financially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Financially beneficial for really, if you think about it. Now, if you run into somebody who is trying to get their spouse to not vaccinate, but is vaccinated themselves, now that's somebody you have to watch out for.
That would be questionable. The motives.
It's like, okay. Interesting.
All this stuff is just so weird. Now that the CDC just came out recommending people basically go, the Johnson & Johnson, that's garbage. You want to get one of the mRNA ones. It's interesting to me. That we've really looked into the side effects of all of the different vaccines that are out there. And the Johnson & Johnson has a blood clotting issue. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the mRNA vaccines have a heart inflammation issue.
Heart inflammation, sterility, all kinds of issues.
And that's not talked about overall. It's like, no, those are safe.
Giant balls in Jamaica, I heard, from that vaccine, clearly.
I don't know if that could be caused by so many different things.
Get married because of the giant balls now, so
could be so many things causing giant balls.
Well, but really, mostly just the vaccine.
Could be any. You never know, and that's it. That's why there is so much more data that will be needed to really go.
Oh, they'll have plenty of data.
Whether that'll ever get out, I don't know. But this concept that the Johnson & Johnson, which already had a pausing for a few days when they originally found some of these blood clotting issues. Never once did anybody question this, although there are countries outside of the United States. I know there are a few, I think Denmark may be one if I'm remembering correctly, that said the mRNA stuff, nobody under 30 should be taking this.
Yeah. And the guy who created the mRNA process said nobody should be using this for COVID in the first place.
Is that a bad sign, maybe?
Yeah, people don't give a shit. They just do whatever the government tells them.
Yeah. And
nice little slaves.
Yeah, well, you got to listen so you can get your money from Uncle Joe if you're in the United States.
And so the Austin City Council has voted to extend their abilities, their self-imposed power to require businesses to enforce their arbitrary laws for another year.
Which are set to expire. And
to be able to make all these requirements from businesses. So they originally, it was supposed to expire December 31st. And they thought, let's do one more year.
Oh, what's another year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if now the state, the governor more specifically, has countermanded most of these Austin edicts. But nonetheless, the city of Austin is reserving its right to dole out more laws, which will then not be enforced because the state says you can't do that.
Well, that's kind of the problem, is they keep putting out more and more of these mandates and these regulations, but they're never written into these when they go away. This is the epitome of once the government gets their foot in the door, never going back out.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
And this is why you have to be aware of that. As somebody that elected these idiots, if you believe you did, what's going on around the country lately is absolutely insane with crime and smash and grabs and violence. And it's unfathomable, really, when you see how much these numbers are up, including in Chicago. Again, the violence and the homicide rate, we're over 800, which is yay.
Per day? No, that's crazy, man.
It seems like it could be, though.
It's like a war zone.
Yeah, it is. Chicago is a war zone, and nobody seems to care that.
Well, I thank you for your service in living in Chicago.
Yeah, I'm far enough out. I'm outside of Crook County, so I'm a little bit safer. But I'm still packing, man, because you have to be.
Yeah.
As we've talked about multiple times, if somebody comes through your door or your window and breaks into your house, it's like takes a lot of time to be like, well, let me call up. Let's say, hey, police. It's much easier just to grab the gun and quicker. And
the police will just tell you to cooperate with them so you don't get hurt.
Right. Whatever you do, if they just let them take your stuff, we'll be there.
Just let them rape you, whatever they want. It's better than the alternative.
Yeah, we'll be there.
We'll be there we'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
We'll take your statement tomorrow.
That's why you get your concealed carry license, get well acquainted with your weapons, and
practice makes perfect.
Yeah, make sure that those amendment rights, the first and second especially, are they're important.
Yeah, well, the second is there to protect the first.
That's right.
The way it's always been.
That is right. I believe you.
What about this? What else we got? We got any tech stories?
Yes, metaverse, baby. Got that screenshot. I don't see. I can't tell what stuff. Yeah, I can't tell where. Are we side by side? We have the big screen behind us.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what the final thing is looking like yet, but this metaverse thing, yes, which is part of this new Facebook virtual world, which seems like, again, much to do.
Oh, you're sharing your screen here. Let me flip to that if I can.
Much to do.
That didn't work at all, did it?
I don't see anything coming back from you.
And no, that's true. There. No, it's just a picture of me. That's awesome.
That's what people want. They want more Gene.
Yes. Well, we'll just leave it here for now. This seems like a good way to do it.
They want more Gene.
Let's see if this fixes it.
But the metaverse.
There we go.
Concept. It's really nothing more than a reinvented Second Life, and Second Life wasn't even the first of its kind, which is having an avatar and being able to move around a virtual world. And back when you just had to do this on a 2D screen, I get it. It was different. People that play video games know all about first-person shooters and being able to move within a world.
Yeah.
That's what this concept is of this meta verse that Facebook is coming out with, except now you have the virtual reality goggles that you can put on that's a little bit more immersive.
It seems like a whole Ready Player One bullshit thing.
Kind of, yeah. It really does. And the problems, of course, that
were you on Second Life?
Briefly was not.
Did you go hang out with Adam?
No, that was no.
I think he was running a brothel on Second Life, if I remember right.
Hey, you got to make your money.
Yeah, and those made a lot of money.
Because people buy virtual goods.
I was on Second Life for probably a year or so. I ran a casino.
See, that's also not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. I remember testing out one of the first virtual worlds, which I believe predated Second Life, was
which one?
A company that maybe it was sold to or morphed into a company called Exit Reality, but it was put out in connection with the Pussycat Dolls, believe it or not. And
I believe it.
There was a whole virtual world with different clubs and all this, and people could buy clothing and you could design your own clothes and make money.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a whole thing going on like 15 years ago.
People were making tons of money off Second Life clothing.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, you would be able to come up with these little digital goods, whether it was to make your avatar look different or build buildings, and you could have your own, you know, property and then build them up brick by brick, basically, you know, piece by piece, however you wanted to do that. It was a really cool concept, but you're still going to run into the same problems, which is, as in any chat room, as in any social media site, some people are assholes. That's always the way it's going to be.
Who does Facebook think their audience is?
I don't know.
They're
not sure.
65-year-olds.
I can't see Grandma putting on the virtual reality
goggles. I can't see you putting those on at this point in your life either.
No. Well, I mean, it ruined all the fun when one eye went out, because then there's no 3D concept. You're just looking at a screen.
Good point.
Really, really.
But I think it's one of those things where here, I'm going to switch back to having you in the picture. I'll just retain that other option for the future.
I still can't see what you're doing. You're not sharing.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you were watching us on unrelenting.locals.com, you'd know what we're doing.
Right. Well, you'd know what Gene was doing. I don't even know what he's doing.
No.
That's the beauty of this whole thing.
Exactly.
But the first one of these testers, this was the story of this meta system, claimed that she was groped by a stranger in the virtual world.
How does that happen?
I don't know.
I mean, even if it does happen, how do you know it happened?
Because a character in the virtual world came up to her and touched her virtual body. Although you can't feel that.
Right. She can't feel it.
So you see it on a screen that some little guy touched and that's it.
So in pretty much all video games for the last 20 years, maybe not 20, but certainly 15, teabagging has been a thing when you kill somebody.
Yes, for those 14-year-old boys that really want to leave a mark.
They sure do. So now, are those all sexual offenses that ought to be prosecuted?
Yes, now, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where the world is going in all of this type of insanity.
Yeah. Because everybody knows that's how it works in the real world. Right after you kill somebody on the battlefield, you run over and teabag them.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, virtual groping will be treated at some point as actual groping. If we're not really careful.
Virtual bullying is treated like real bullying now.
Oh, I remember so many of those stories and this is where I remember really starting to do some podcasts about 15 years ago.
Those words hurt me. Go get the police.
Well, it was beyond that. It was that some girl was bullied online, and one of the bullies was also one of the other girl's mothers, which I thought was both sad and hilarious at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But this young girl then ended up killing herself, and they tried to go after these people for, actual crimes for what they did. And it's like, dude, you have the freedom of speech.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
not on Facebook, sad. Of course.
Well, yeah. And only in the real world, not in the metaverse, which is what the top story on the Breitbart today was about, how, again, social media is going after the people's free speech. And this is being encouraged by the Biden administration, which I don't think is any surprise to anybody paying attention here. No, I
don't think that's a surprise for anybody.
But this kind of a concept like, oh, well, somebody touched me in a virtual world and this is a crime. It's like, no, well, like any other system, like all of the social medias and most chat interfaces, you can ignore or block somebody. And if that would work, then they should disappear.
There is a way to make that still be a crime.
Which part? The virtual groping?
Somebody touching in the virtual world. And that is to make your avatar a 7-year-old girl.
That's how you're safe.
But who's the real pervert at that point?
The one playing a 7-year-old girl or the one touching a 7-year-old girl?
Yeah, I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder about the guys that are, these 40-year-old guys playing as little girl cartoon characters.
A lot of these guys like the My Little Pony. Are you anybody bronies out there?
There's nothing wrong with being a brony.
Oh, wow.
This is a totally different issue.
This is a nerve. It's either going to be the Adidas tracksuit next time, or you're going to be in a full like purple velour with the. Oh yeah, I want to see Gene as My Little Pony.
Definitely not Your Little Pony.
Not My Little. This is not your dad's Little Pony.
No.
Now on Unrelenting.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, but that brings up a lot of interesting points with these virtual worlds. Is why people represent themselves the way they do. Why some guys would want to be on as, girls, older, younger, whatever it is.
First of all, guys running around as female characters is, I'd say 80% of female characters in video games are guys.
Just pretending. So they're looking now.
80%. And I've asked this question a number of times. Seriously, it's like, why do you want to be a female character? Sometimes you get rationalizations like, well, it's a smaller hitbox because it's a smaller frame character. So I have a slight advantage when I'm shooting and people are shooting back, that there's less of me to hit.
Interesting. Then, but that's not fair. That's not equity. They don't offset that somehow. So
right. Should be the same size hitbox.
Yeah.
And then you have other rationalizations like, well, I'm playing in third person view all the time, so I'm watching my character running around, and I don't know about you, but I'd rather watch a cute girl's ass than a guy's ass. So yeah, it's a female character.
That makes sense.
But I don't buy any of that.
No, what do you think this is?
Probably about 80% of the male gamers are really secret transsexuals.
80%.
80% or so. Yeah.
You may want.
And if they had full freedom to be in this virtual world full time, the way it is in Ready Player One, I think it'd be about somewhere about a 1-to-5 ratio of female to male characters, with females being the 5.
I can see that. I mean, I would think a lot of it could also just be.
Imagine you're in a world where you not just can look like anything you want, but like Ready Player One, and the way that Facebook wants to take it is you're wearing a suit that lets you feel everything, like somebody actually pinching you. You would feel it in the real world. You have all these guys that they're playing female characters, just massaging themselves nonstop.
Yeah, I don't know.
On the battlefield that they're supposed to be shooting guns on.
That seems disturbing. Seems a little bit
disturbing.
That's
utopia. What do you mean disturbing? Letting people do what they want. That's utopia.
That is disturbing. See, I would always thought a lot of this stuff would just be guys pretending to be females just in order to remove money from other guys. That the main scam of the internet, which is, catfish somebody in one way, shape, or form and get money, gifts, gift cards, whatever the new cash is that people want. Crypto.
Oh, there's certainly some of that for sure.
But this metaverse world, and somebody groped me in at the. I don't get it.
They meta-groped you in the metaverse.
Yes, and they're going to take that very seriously. Facebook is.
Yeah. Well, I just don't see it. I think this is a last gasp for Facebook. They're kind of entering their. What was the one that was before Facebook? Their MySpace moment. Yeah, this is like their MySpace. This is like we were always about musicians and stuff, so that's our main focus now. Yeah, that's because everybody left, and the only people that stayed were musicians on MySpace. That was it. That's because everyone else moved to Facebook.
Now it's all
I think we're kind of getting to that with Facebook, where people are realizing that they don't really need social media or want social media. What they want are just a bunch of images.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So what else do we got today, Gene?
Who's anybody donate this week?
We need to.
We got any donators, or nobody listening really?
Hello, anybody out there? We did have Sir Kilgore Trout of the Dude's Name Ben, monthly $3.30, Brian Hall, monthly $2.93, and of course, Jeremy Gerdes, the 33-cent checks continue. I could
still coming in.
I could show you them, but yeah, they're still coming in. But we are a value for value podcast, and you can also give over at Locals, which you said somebody did, although it was Locals coin, it didn't come through, and
well, really sure I don't know if it's a Locals coin, but I think they might have done a one-off donation through their phone to Locals, which Locals app allows. So that was for $54, I believe.
Yes.
Do you remember who?
No. That's on your side. You found
that's that. On my side. That's
you found
it's
that.
on
You're
the local side. It's the locals report. Well, I guess I can pull. Well, I can't pull it up on locals because we're streaming on locals.
See, forget
you can
locals.
Check it on locals.
Yeah, that'll probably make everything crash.
So are you going to pull it up or not?
I will certainly try to.
Okay, because it's a sizable donation. But while you're doing that, just as a FYI, one thing that we just realized because this donation came in, I certainly didn't really remember this, or maybe I read it, I don't know, that if you make a donation via a mobile device, like your Apple phone, Android phone, then either Google or Apple or whoever owns your device, they take 30% off the top. So if you make a $100 donation, $30 of that goes to Apple or Google, and then the remainder it gets sent to us. And this is not something that you can point a finger at locals for. This is literally any money you spend on that device, whether you're buying chips for a video game, whether you're making a contribution to anything really. If it's going through the device payment system, which most apps do, like Apple requires that apps use their payments. Apps that don't use the Apple payment system, like a few apps that are doing podcasting 3.0 stuff, are kind of bypassing it. Apple simply takes those apps offline or doesn't let them be published in the first place. So if you have the ability to buy something or even make a donation on an Apple or Android app, they want a piece of that. And so with locals is no different, no exception. So we greatly appreciate this person who Darren hopefully is going to look up the name of in making the donation. But just do keep in mind that if you make that donation via your phone device, then 30% of it gets sent to the phone manufacturer.
I don't see amounts. I see that there is a one-time supporter, Josh, and one-time supporter, HB Worth, but I don't see amounts on, one says 3 month, one says 6 month.
Okay. Well, we will look that up. I guess I should have looked that up before we started to make sure that we have the names in there correctly. But we will certainly make good on that on the next episode if we have one.
Whether it'll be on video or not, that I guess is the question.
Yeah. Well, video is the future. That's where all the money is.
Is it?
That's what you told me about 2 hours ago.
I didn't say that's where the money is. I said that's where people are actually watching.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I heard.
That's all.
That's what I heard.
You just heard the cha-ching when they're like, more people are watching. More people.
I was like, more money in there. Got it. Okay, yeah, let's do video today.
Which is why I wanted to be on YouTube rather than the locals, which of course put me down to only a half hour.
I will be uploading this to YouTube right at the end of the episode.
You're going to have some editing to do.
It'll be, did you want to do that? Oh, okay.
You're going to have to edit since the damn thing just keeps failing. Which also means I don't, editing this audio, I don't know how much audio I'm going to have out of here either. I don't really, trying to go through and piece shit
adding video to, how's that song go? Video killed the audio star?
I think so, yeah. The radio star.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's about right. It could be just looked as a really bad test. I think
we're pretty much are losing all the listeners that we've had at this point.
But I thought you said we were down to only, you had 30 minutes and then they were gone.
8 people, yeah.
But is it still, you said 30 minutes. We're past 30 minutes.
We are.
So then how are people still watching if we were limited to 30 minutes?
Oh, maybe they're not watching. Maybe you're right. That's probably it.
Don't understand. Doug will tell me how many people are still listening live on the stream. Probably 59. 59, dude. Better.
Yeah. Well, listening is a question there. I mean, that there's 59 people that have the window open.
59 connections. Yeah, I get it.
And there's 8 people that have the video window open. As for how many of them are actually watching, that's a whole separate question.
But how is there still a video window then I don't understand. If it was limited to a half hour.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And it's beyond is it still a half hour, then.
Oh, no, we're past a half hour. Yeah, that's it. It's done.
So
it is done.
Yes. So yes, that's no longer live streaming the video portion of this. Now I'm guessing
one new person followed though. That's good.
That's a plus.
Yeah, sucker.
One small step for man.
Uh-huh.
One not so giant leap for.
Well, we got, you know what? I think with the half-hour cutoff, I think then the point at which your video decided to disappear was prior to that.
Oh, did that? Oh, you know what? That may be why, because the minute you started it the first time, I wonder if that was the half-hour mark, and it ended up kicking off the.
It shouldn't have affected you, though. I mean,
but this stuff has weird things. Cold Acid says I sound grumpier than Bemrose today. Is that even possible, Cold Acid?
Totally. You're absolutely right, Cold Acid. Got Mr. Grumpy here.
The 30% VIG. Thank you for listening, Cold Acid. He said if we're doing video, we should do Twitch like Nick the Rat does. We've talked about Twitch. We talked about YouTube. I mean, YouTube might make the most sense, even though it's big and evil Google. I think they have an infrastructure.
But Twitch is big and evil Amazon. I mean, there's really, from an evilness standpoint, there's no difference between the two.
Right.
In fact, Twitch is eviler because,
Eviler.
We talked about phones taking 30%. Do you know how much Twitch takes?
More?
Half.
Wow.
Twitch takes half of any money that's contributed to the creator.
Hey, they got to make that cash, man. Twitch got to be twitching.
How's Bezos going to fly into space otherwise?
He's got
to make money from the little tiny creators out there trying to make videos.
Yes.
And by the way, I am on Twitch, and you can watch the gaming videos on Twitch that I do there. But for political stuff, I don't think Twitch is really the right platform. I mean, Nick the Rat doesn't really do politics, so it kind of works for him. But a lot of our show is really focused on political.
Right.
Politicals.
The politicals, which really make people laugh. The politicals, and then it's like
politicals. That means lots of tickles.
Polytickle me, Polytickle me, Elmo.
Yeah, Polytickle me, Melmo.
Don't touch me, 13. Don't.
Yeah. Why are you doing an impression of Capture Blogger?
No, he's.
I just heard you do it.
He's Elmo, but lower.
Elmo low.
Yes. Dallin, why you Slavic brother? Sir Gene is bad. Don't do podcast with him. He eats a pickle. Yeah.
Oh my God, that is so bad. We're going to have such negative comments and a threat of no more money donations from CSB.
It's the politicals. That's right.
The Polytickles.
Yeah, the Polytickles.
That's the name of the episode, I think. Polytickles.
Polytickles. Yeah. Is it? But you spell it Polly, then you sound like the 7-year-old girl again.
Polytickle. Oh man, that's not an area we need to be going towards. God damn it! It does fit in with the other conversation.
Yeah, run away!
Yeah.
It's the virtual world we're in.
This is a virtual world. I mean, we are sitting in a blue virtual world right now, man.
But I wonder, it is possible because you were sending that video out to locals. I bet you that the cutoff may have had something to do with it. I have to look at the timing, but the fact that just crashed out on the browser like that, maybe it was locals. But for stuff that is the main show anyway, it should be on YouTube or somewhere normal people can find it more easily.
Like Rumble, the premier video platform for non-liberals.
They let you do the live stuff too? Rumble, is that?
Yeah, you got to pay money though.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah, I think it's like $20 a month-ish. Allows you to do stream live.
Yes, and that is a great show title, Cold Acid. Polytickles. It'd be a no agenda-esque.
Very, very. It'd be the kind of title that somebody would have to explain to their spouse, what the fuck are you listening to?
I'm listening to Polytickles on the Unrelenting podcast. And I'm going to go to the virtual world. That just sounds
dirty.
I'm going to go to the virtual world where somebody is going to grope me.
No groping here. We do not provide political, do not provide legal.
Yeah, do not do
medical.
Political groping is only for Joe Biden. Don't you? That's part of the deal with him.
Oh, God. Now I've got the image in my head
of Joe Biden politically groping you
online. Joe Biden groping 7-year-old girls online.
That sounds like Joe Biden's average day.
Oh, I need to wash my brain out, I think.
Well, what else do you got? I mean, now that we had all the Russian propaganda.
I closed all the windows, so I got nothing else.
All the windows have been closed? That's nice.
The windows that have been closed. No, I had, let me think what other stories we had. So I mentioned the Russian ammo is at record numbers. We talked about Alec Baldwin. I've actually been doing a lot of like funny video posts in No Agenda Social. So this has been a slightly lower real news week for me.
Well, yeah, they're
all more focused on
a lot
comedy
of that
news
stuff's dropping out.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that realtor.com, and Redfin have both removed an item on listing pages, which if anybody's ever looked for a house on one of these sites, there's a variety of information, including school district and all of this stuff that you might want to know about the area, like, population, right, how far it is to restaurants and all that. Well, where they used to show crime stats, no more, because it's racist to show crime stats.
They're not allowed to. I was
allowed by who?
I was something. I was driving around with a friend of mine with a real estate agent looking at houses this weekend. My buddy's moving to San Antonio, and so I figured it'd be a fun way to spend the weekend and looking at houses with him. And at one place, I'd asked the realtor, it's like, well, how's the crime around here? And his answer was, well, I'm a realtor. I'm not allowed to say.
What? What do you mean not allowed to?
He's not allowed to say. Apparently,
it's just like
there have been lawsuits.
You need to go to this website.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, there have been some lawsuits or maybe standards, or maybe there is an actual law that's been passed by legislature that prevents real estate agents from being able to talk about crime in an area they're showing. I was very surprised. I was like, "You kidding, right? You're really? You can't say anything about?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm not allowed to say."
Because it's racist to tell somebody they're moving into a war zone.
Well, and I've already told you that my dad's comment on San Antonio was like, "Yeah, they have high crime there. I'm not moving there." I'm like, high crime? You have more high crime in Seattle where you live than in San Antonio, and you can't. It's a very large
kind
city.
Of crime.
It covers a much larger area. Yeah, well, there's 3 military bases around San Antonio, which means there's a whole bunch of 20-year-olds full of testosterone, even testosterone for that matter. I was going to say
they're full of what?
The testosterone. Have you not heard of testosterone?
No, is it new by Coca-Cola?
Yeah, it's a new patented version that you have to get a prescription for. Anyway, of course, there's going to be more petty crime, but it's not a safe city.
Right. Like Seattle, where we talked about a couple of shows ago that they were paying private security to walk their employees out to their cars.
Yes. Which makes total sense because the cops aren't going to do anything. And the crime is at a point where you're liable to, get your head blown in.
Get it all blown right off. That makes sense. So you can't tell people or even list it. So where do you go then? If your realtor won't give you the information and...
Well, the statistics are available online from
the government site. So you still just have to go...
their government sites show them, yeah.
So you just have to do more work. Right, until that's all taken off too and whitewashed or blacklisted or whatever you want to call it.
You can't use words like that. You're racist.
I know. It's black and white and it's bad. And
no.
Over 800 homicides year to date in Lori Lightfoot, Chicago. That was another story I had. Not a big surprise. We hit on that briefly.
It's an insane daily rate of homicides.
It's year to date, so that's for the whole year, but we're getting there.
800, so 800 times 365.
Right.
How many total deaths is that?
I don't think you understand what year to date
That's a lot of deathage in Chicago.
I think we need to get the math major back on the show to explain to you how mathematics work. But it's still pretty bad. And these smash and grabs and the millions of dollars in merchandise that's being stolen. And did you see? Oh, man, I should have pulled this clip. The mayor of San Francisco, one of the towns that has turned into the biggest crap hole in America, is now saying she's going to get tough on crime.
Lori Lightfoot is?
No, this is the other idiot woman mayor, and that sounded sexy. A sexist sister more than it was meant to be. London Breed in San Francisco that is now saying, yeah, we're going to increase funding now to the police, and we're going to make all this crime wave going on stop. And it's like,
no.
Well, you do realize it was your policies that caused the crime wave.
Yeah, and nothing's going to stop. I mean, that's the one thing.
Of course, it's not going to stop.
There are too many people that are vested in the police not being around.
Right.
And the only thing that's going to happen that will change it are the long-term consequences of a lot of chains like Walmart, Target, Walgreens, just not being in San Francisco.
And that's happening.
You want to go to Walmart? You got to drive 50 miles outside of the city.
Right. It was Target that was closing. Walgreens, I think CVS are all closing stores in San Francisco.
Yep.
In any area like this, because if you're losing more money than you're making, it doesn't make sense to be open.
No. So, fuck all those people that are buying drugs at the drugstore.
Right.
They're no longer going to be able to do that.
Well, it hurts the individual neighborhoods, but the people in the neighborhoods have to be responsible for stopping the crime. Chicago's the same thing. I mean, it comes down to the fact that, you need, in order for people to be afraid of committing violent crimes, well, then you actually have to be put in jail and punished when you do commit the crime. There was a case made national news here in Chicago, was a 15-year-old kid, I believe. He was the one that was buying drugs from a 17-year-old kid.
Okay.
Things went bad. 17-year-old kid stabbed the 15-year-old kid to death.
Wow.
Got 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service. A 17-year-old killed a 15-year-old in Chicago. He was a drug dealer, knifed the guy to death.
Well, he was a juvenile, though.
17, right. Because that's the magic number. I mean, I guess, again, if you're under 18, you can do anything, which is, I talked about with Ryan Bemrose on Grumpy Old Ben's, when the massive amounts of carjackings really start coming up here in Chicago. And everybody, again, was like, oh, why is this happening? Well, it was because the DA changed the criteria of what they were going to actually go after, to where they were going to prosecute. And they said, anybody under 18, they're not going to prosecute as an adult. So you know who start jacking cars more?
Yeah.
Those under 18. Of
course.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's
insane.
When you stop enforcing laws that people start breaking laws, that is amazing.
Could you believe that would be the reaction of people? Can you believe that would be what the response would be? I can't. It's so crazy, Gene.
Well, if there were more guns and cars, then there'd be less carjacking.
That may be true. If everybody had a gun, the world
It's a very polite society when everyone has a gun.
The world would be a better place. No doubt about it.
We're slowly getting there. I mean, the gun sales were a record number this year.
Yeah, I did see that.
A lot of liberals bought guns. A lot of first-time gun owners in general bought guns.
Well, because is it that they have finally realized that with the insanity of things like defunding the police, that if they need help, are they finally realizing that you have to be somewhat self-sufficient? And
I think so. I think that is a big part of what's happening. I think people are realizing that not only will the police not come to your aid, but also that even if they do, you're just as likely to get hurt. So whether by the criminal or by the cops. And we've seen examples of police protecting BLM protesters from people that they're harassing. We saw a video of this in Seattle, where the guy that's getting stuff thrown at him was arrested while the police were checking to make sure the BLM people were not, their feelings weren't hurt by this guy.
Well,
I mean, this is the sort of police that we have in place right now. So I'm on board with defunding the police fully. I think that money is better spent on personal weapons.
Give everybody a 9mm and tell them to go
whatever amount of money per person we're spending on police right now, I think we're frankly better off spending it arming ourselves.
Well, it's a crazy world. It really is. There was a case in California where paramedics refused to go into a senior citizen home to get somebody in cardiac arrest because they thought there was some new law that said the venue would have to bring the people outside. It's just insanity, because there is something in California that's like, well, if all possible, then, to keep the safety of everybody inside, because, COVID, big bad. So for the safety of everybody inside, the state of California says, well, if somebody has a medical emergency, it would really be better if the nursing home could bring them to the front door, which is probably okay if somebody stubbed their toe.
Sure. Yeah.
But if somebody's going through cardiac arrest, which what happened in this case, and then the guy died after he was finally got to the hospital, not so good. The law standing in between somebody getting medical care in this case, or not having, as you said, if somebody comes in and breaks into your home and wants to, beat or rape you, well, we got a COVID. So, is everybody
make
masked?
sure you wear a mask,
right?
When you rape somebody.
Is the guy raping you wearing a mask? Tell him to put his mask on so we can come inside.
Yeah. If the guy that's raping you is not wearing a mask, let us know, because we can enforce those mandates.
that we can do. We can
that
totally
will show
take
up
him
for
down.
The rape, we'll come and take your statement tomorrow.
I don't know. It's a crazy world. Like you said, if everybody had a gun, we'd all be in better shape.
Absolutely.
It's kind of,
and there'd be fewer criminals.
That would be the dangerous talk that'll get us thrown off of YouTube.
Before we're on YouTube, you realize absolutely saying stuff like this is not allowed on YouTube. They
said everybody should have a gun. Oh, scared.
Yeah,
we'll see. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what the first infraction is and how long it'll take the channel to get booted. But that's why there's Rumble. You're right. Rumble's the place to be.
And even if we're not doing live streaming to Rumble, we could totally start uploading to Rumble.
Yes. I mean, everybody wants to see our pretty faces. I think everybody enjoyed that for the half hour we were live today before everything crashed.
The 8 people, that were on there.
All 8 people. But that's not zero. And this wasn't pre-planned. This wasn't, we told everybody.
No, this was a random time.
Yes. So I still take that as a win. And
good.
We know that people want to be able to hear us streaming. We want to do this on a regular basis at a regular time. And the ability to do this where we had been doing it isn't available. So we're looking for alternatives and ways we can do this for everybody. This isn't we only want people paying to be able to hear the live stream. No, we want everybody to hear the live stream.
Well, and also the live stream represents a tiny percentage of people that just enjoy listening to us on the podcast.
Yes.
And that's why I want to make sure we're not neglecting with all this video talk is people that have no interest in watching us, but are perfectly happy and interested to hear us on a podcast.
Right. And once this is down, and hopefully by the next episode, that may be the case, that the people listening on the audio side, if you're not interested in video, you don't have to worry about anything. It's not what you really need.
The podcast is still going to come out just like it's always come out every week.
And the video content that will be there, whether we're showing our pretty faces or a web browser with a current story in it, none of that is going to be essential to enjoying the show. We're not going to be like, oh, wow, hey, look at this, and then stay silent while people on the audio side can't hear anything. So this is basically a way for us to expand where more people can consume the podcast. And as long as we're streaming to a video service, some people do just a, thumbnail or something like that, and then just pump the audio in, which is maybe the route we'll end up going. But it's kind of fun to play around with being able to have a full video for shorter clips and things like that we can post as well to Rumble or YouTube or wherever.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think the idea of video is cool. It's just like I knew walking into this from having done video game YouTube videos and Twitch streams that adding video to something that didn't contain video adds a lot more than 50% more work.
Well,
video is like 80% more work.
You have to put on clothes.
There you go. You have to put on clothes. You have to get lighting and tweak all the settings and make sure that your video looks decent enough that you don't mind having this live on for the next 100 years on the internet.
Right. And for me, it makes it really hard to read anything because with the light, which makes it look good for the video, basically just sends a big haze in front of the bad eye. Yeah. So, for me to really be able to read something on the screen, it's like you kind of want to lean in and close one eye and, hop on one foot.
Move away from the microphone.
Right. So, maybe we will just end up going to a static, video background, except for shorter clips, but we'll see. That's why we wanted to test it out. And for those who saw the video on Locals, which it's still up there now, let us know what you think. We'll be uploading this, I'm guessing, to Rumble and YouTube and see how that goes. Just curious to see what shakes out, because everybody I know, like our buddy Bandrew, that does both an audio and video version, the video versions are more popular. Yeah. Why? I don't know, but they are.
Well, people like to have, I watch tons of YouTube. I probably do watch more YouTube than listen to podcasts.
Well, see, you are a YouTube guy.
Yeah. Well, and I pay for YouTube too.
That's so you could get Tim Pool without ads. I know.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And you always wanted to do the Tim Pool thing. Did you do that during this episode where you were just in a little bit corner? Nice. Yeah.
The problem is that I didn't have you redone using this new browser window method that we used.
Right.
So it was just me, which is fine.
That's even better. That's even better, Gene. You are the pretty one, and I'm the smart one. I know.
That's true.
You got anything else? Or are we going to wrap this thing up?
Well, we've been going for a couple hours. I think we can probably wrap it up. And like I said, I think it's been a somewhat light week. I don't want to get into just like Hollywood gossip topics. There's no point. There's plenty of shows that do that. So I think we covered the important issues of Alec Baldwin here.
Yes. With that said, then until next time, I am Darren O'Neill.
And I'm Sir Gene.